Welcome to this quick tutorial on creating what I call a subtle drop shadow. And I just want to go quickly through a couple of techniques, and then we'll have a little bit of a bonus on how to add this little shadow here as well. Okay, so first we're going to make sure that we are in the Essential workspace. So I always do the Essential Classic, and I'm going to reset Essential Classic so that we all have the same workspace. And then I'm going to go over to the layers here, and I'm going to drag the layers into this main area over here so that we can see our layers. And so you can see right now that I have a couple of layers here. I have the text layer at the top, I have the ball layer here, I have the shadow layer, and I have the background. Alright, so for now we're going to lock the background, and we can go ahead and lock the text layer as well. Actually, you know what I want to do first is I'm going to zoom out. I'm doing Command minus, Command minus. I'm going to go to Document Setup, and I'm going to do Edit Artboards, okay? And I'm going to drag this artboard over so I get a copy, and I'm going to work on the copy version, all right? So let's see, on this copy version, I'll delete the text, and I'm actually going to go ahead and delete these drop shadows as well, okay? Or delete this drop shadow first. Okay, so this is really simple how I created this. I just created a simple, I used a ellipse tool, right, to create a simple ball shape here. And then I've also got this little drop shadow that I'm going to show you a little bit later. But okay, so let's say you're here and you want to make what I call a subtle drop shadow. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select that, do Command Copy, Command C, Command V, and then this is going to be a similar shape. So basically I just take the same shape and kind of squeeze it down here. I might make it a little bit smaller as well and kind of center it up, and then I'm going to give it a fill of a medium gray, or actually a quite of a light gray. You can also set the web colors only, so we can get kind of a, I think this is actually good, this second gray right here. I'm going to hit OK for that. So in terms of this one, we want to make sure that this goes behind the ball shape, right? So it needs to go down in the layers. I've got this little blue dot here. I'm going to drag that to the shadow layer, and now you can see that it goes behind. And so now the shadow is kind of sitting in there. But the thing is, right now it's a little too dark and it's a little too strong. So here's what we can do. So first we're going to select this, and we're going to go up to the opacity menu up here, and we're going to change the transparency to 60%, okay? And so first, obviously you see that it gets a little bit lighter, and some of that, some of the beige is starting to show through. Now, you could stop here, that's fine, that would be nice and subtle, and you get some of that background, but I also like to go to the blending mode and change that blending mode to multiply. And then basically what that helps to do is kind of pick up the color of the background a little bit more. And I'm okay with this. I think that's pretty good in terms of the subtle shadow here. And you could play around with the positioning of it, or maybe even squeezing it down a little bit more. And you could also play around with the opacity, maybe drag that down a little bit to see where you like it. I'm going to leave it here at 60% though. Okay, so now what about this one? Alright, so this is a different shadow here. And actually I'm going to this time just go ahead and grab my oval tool, and I know that I have my medium gray here in my fill swatch, so I'm going to click and drag out. Alright, so another way that you could do this is to put the blur effect on this. So you go up to effects, and then you go to blur, and I'm going to do Gaussian blur here. And right now I have this set at 20 pixels, which is fine because this is an 8.5 by 11, a letter size in the horizontal or landscape view, right? So 20 pixels works here. It gives it kind of a nice soft edge. But if I was at a different resolution, you might have to change that. So just keep that in mind that 20 pixels is working right now because it's a 300 dpi. It's quite a high resolution image, but you might have to change that depending. And then once we've got that blur on there, I'm going to go through some of the same process here. So I'm going to change the opacity to multiply, so we kind of got it a little bit darker there. And then I'm also going to pull down the opacity here. I'm going to go back to 60 as well. So you see you get that kind of like faded shadow. Alright, so it kind of depends on your preferences here, which one you like the best. And then I got to make sure also, okay, good, those are in the shadow layer as well. Now, how do I make this little thing here? Okay, so let's there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I'm just going to pull these up, okay? Now, one of the ways that I like to do it is I like to use some of the geometry that's already there. So, let's say for instance I want to take this little shape here. So I'm going to grab the selection tool here. This is the direct selection tool. I'm going to click away and I'm just going to select this one element right here, and then I do Command C on the keyboard, Command V to paste it, and now I've got a line here, right? Okay, so it's kind of got the same shape. All right. Now we're going to flip the fill and stroke so that it becomes a line stroke, right? Now, if we pull it on top of this image, it's got the same color, but we're going to change that color and we're going to darken that color a little bit. So let me come down. So that's way too dark. That looks pretty good. Let's see what this looks like. Now, this might be a situation where you change it to not be the web colors, okay? And all right, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to kind of position this over here. Now, it's not going to be perfect yet, all right? So we're going to change the stroke and we're going to boost this stroke up. And another thing we can do to kind of round the edges of this is we go into the stroke by clicking on the stroke icon here, and we're going to do a round cap. So it kind of softens that edge there. And then in this particular case, I'm going to kind of position it here, and then I'm going to grab the direct selection tool again and grab just this point and kind of move it in here, okay? Now I know what you're thinking, it's not perfect because wouldn't the shadow be all the way along the bottom? That's okay right now, I'm just showing you how to do this kind of stylistically. Now that looks pretty good, but if you notice on this other shadow here, okay, I've got this kind of tapering. And so there's something really cool about Adobe Illustrator now. It has the built-in width tool for lines, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to orient my width tool about the midway of this. I'm going to kind of thicken it up here, and then I'm going to go here and kind of thin it down. Let's see, how do I, drag the little handle here to kind of thin it down a little bit, okay? And then this might need a little more tweaking in terms of the positioning of these 2 points to kind of make it feel a bit more realistic, okay? And then I noticed too that I have a slightly different color stroke in my other version, so I'm going to go ahead and just select this. And I can even use the dropper tool, select the dropper tool and click on this and get that same color. And notice it also captures the same stroke, which is pretty interesting, the same thickness. I'm leaving a little bit of a gap here at the bottom just to kind of simulate that reflective light from the surface of the table or whatever that is. Okay, so now how do we get this effect? Okay, well again, we're going to drop that blur on there. Okay, so actually I'm just going to copy this guy, Command copy, Command V, pull this over here, kind of put it in position, and of course I got to change the color, so I'm going to double click on this. Actually, I will start with, you know what, I think I can just eyeball this. You probably want to, something like that, maybe a little lighter. Let's go with something like that, okay? And then now we're going to put that same blur on there. So we're going to go up to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and here we go, 20 pixels again. Okay, now that might feel a bit strong. So again, here we can change the opacity here, bring it down to like 60, and then also I might want to try it. Let's see what multiplying it looks like. Okay, it makes it a little darker. You know, you can play around with that. I'm just going to leave it the way it is right now. So those are two methods for creating what I call a subtle drop shadow, right? Let's make sure that that one's multiply as well. So what's nice about multiply is that if you change the color fill of the background, it's going to kind of match. Well, these are very light, but the multiply is gonna match, right? So the multiply of the shadow is gonna match the color, which is really cool. And finally, I just wanted to show you, let's go back to the original color here by Command Z, Command Z. The last thing I want to show you is that let's say here you have this element and it's got the blur effect on it, but you want to see what, you maybe want to edit that blur effect, right? Instead of going up to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur, instead you want to click on what's called the Appearance panel. And the Appearance panel, here's this Appearance panel is going to show you all the effects that are on this right now. And so it's really cool. But you can see here that it has the Gaussian blur in that appearance panel for this particular object. And so there you can go back and edit that, right? So that's super powerful, meaning meaning you have control over the elements, right? Or you could change the opacity, all kinds of things. So hopefully that helps. Feel free to download the file. It's in the links below and play around with this on your own. Thanks a lot.